Hey guys, welcome to another episode of your favorite show, Assent, Dissent. I'm Sean Strong.
And I am Brandon Diaz.
We're your hosts, and we have lots of great topics to talk about tonight. Very meaty stuff. But hey, don't forget to join the conversation by liking, subscribing, and following us at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We are Assent_Dissent. Let's get into the show.
Okay, so Sean, I am so honored to have this next guest on our show. Her resume includes some of the following accolades. She is a former instructor of Teach for America Houston. She was a project manager and community liaison for the city of Cleveland. And now she is the director of strategy and the co-founder of Enlightened Solutions, as well as a consultant of Project Noir and an active member of the Arts and Culture Action Committee, Cleveland Rape Crisis Center, Shaker Center Advisory Board, Black Shield Police Association. And if that wasn't enough, she is a member of the NAACP of Greater Cleveland and the Junior League of Cleveland. Plus, she is an old friend of mine, an old friend from high school, and she is my former cheerleading co-captain from way back when. So, ladies and gentlemen, here is my interview with ChiChi and Nkemere. And Sean, ChiChi and I, we had a discussion about the rise of women, as well as Kamala Harris's nomination. So I first asked ChiChi, is there a difference in the struggles that African American women face versus the other races? And this was her response. And then I'll ask you a question following up.
All right.
As you know, I'm Nigerian American, so my perspective is a little different. You know, my parents come from a majority Black country. So there is no concept of Blackness because Blackness is everywhere. We grew up in a Black household, a Nigerian household, where our media is Black, our politicians are Black, our music is Black, our everything is Black. But that gives you a bit of a blind spot. And that blind spot is something that I really had to deconstruct in college and really had to be like, no, I'm not a woman of color. I mean, you can call me that, that's fine, but I'm Black, right? I'm Black here. And the struggles that I have, especially as a dark-skinned Black woman, is extremely different than even my Latina sisters, my Asian sisters. We have similar struggles, but there is a very particular style and type of misogynoir, which is misogyny and racism. It's a sexualized racism that afflicts and impacts Black women stronger. And then the deeper your tone, the worse the effects are. So that's not to say that my lighter toned, Black women, Black sisters do not get it. They definitely do. They just get it to a different degree. And it all roots with white supremacy. So obviously all women of color are suffering under white supremacy. But why is it that in the world, the darkest of us all get it the worst, whether it's lack of resources, lack of education, lack of proper health care? It's not that we don't want these things. It's not that it's pathological within us. It's the idea that white supremacy allows us to say that these people are not worthy of that.
So Sean, why do you think that it is more difficult for women of color that are darker skinned to have success or to get ahead in America?
Are we saying more difficult than women of color that are light skinned, or are we specifically talking about dark skinned Black women versus Latinos, Asians, etc.?
I would say dark skin versus everybody, kind of like what ChiChi was saying. What are your thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, obviously, as she was saying, it's all rooted in white supremacy. The darker you are, the nastier you are, and the more that we want to stay away from you. I mean, when people look like you or look like me, they're not as scary or as intimidating to those, who are not of color. But the darker you are, you immediately become scary. You immediately become intimidating. We immediately need to watch you because you're just not right. I actually remember in college, in undergrad, when we were soliciting donations for some organization, some trip that we were taking, there was a darker skinned gentleman who used to tell me, he was like, I'm not asking people in this neighborhood for money. He said, but you can go up to the door and ask them. And it was something that I didn't even really understand for the longest period of time. But I definitely agree with her. And I think that people of a darker hue have it a little more challenging. Not to say that we all don't have it challenging, because we do, but people of a darker skin tone definitely do.
Okay. All right. So for my second question, I then asked ChiChi, what did Kamala Harris's nomination mean to her? And this is what she said.
Oh, her nomination is really layered for me. Now, first, giving space for the Black women that came before her, our Shirley Chisholms, our freedom fighters beforehand, the individuals that have been writing about social justice, Ida B. Wells, you know, all of these women that came before us, there would be no Kamala Harris without the struggles of these women. And most importantly, the struggles of Black American women. Now, Kamala Harris has a layered identity similar to mine. I feel a connection with her because she is a third culture kid. Now, third culture, meaning, like me, you do not have the culture of your parents. So Kamala Harris is not fully, you know, immersed in her Tamil ancestry, you know, just like her mom. She's also not fully immersed in her ancestry, her Jamaican ancestry from her father. That's not a negative thing. It just means she could not be born in two places, right? Now, again, holding space for those Black American women, it still makes me extremely proud to see a Black woman that is rooted in her Blackness. I think there are a lot of individuals that are confused about her, but she presents herself as a Black woman. She's not presenting herself as a Jamaican American. She's not presenting herself even as Tamil, even though she could. That's her maternal side. She's presenting herself as a Howard graduate who had feathered hair and door knocker earrings in the 80s, a Black woman that pledged, a super AKA. I know all of my girlfriends they have their AKAs for Kamala, Kamala Harris, AKA insignia and paraphernalia. And it depresses me a little bit to see people try to muddy the waters of something that is so clear.
All right. So Sean, how did you feel about Kamala's nomination, excuse me, and how did you feel about ChiChi's feeling?
So I will say my feeling was a little mixed. I believe in holding everybody accountable and everybody to a standard. And so while personally, I'm a little more versed in the political spectrum because I'm, you know, just involved, I looked at her record as the AG for California, and there were some things that happened and some discrepancies that, you know, I didn't like. And I can 100% say that she was not my choice for VP. That just wasn't my choice. And I can go into that a lot differently. It wasn't her specifically. I just, you know, she wasn't my choice. However, there is the dichotomy of the other side of me as a Black American and someone whose family, I mean, just every woman in my family, minus like two, are members of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated. And so I knew what that moment not only meant to them, but I knew what that moment meant to us as a culture and as a people. And so I was definitely excited for it. I was happy for it. I felt like this is just another domino in the equality that we need to achieve as Black Americans to be seen as normal. I agree with how she felt. And, you know, I echo those sentiments. My issue is, and she brought something up that was really good that I'm not familiar with, and I didn't know how to explain it, but I think she called it third generation culture or something of that.
Third culture, yep.
Yeah, third culture, something of that. That's something that needs to be explored, because what you have is you have the racism of white people that will say she's not Black, she's Jamaican and Indian. And then you have Black sycophants that will join on that bandwagon and try to tear her down from that perspective. And what bothers me about that is before this VP nomination, you looked at her as a Black woman. You didn't know anything about her ancestry. To her, to you all, she was a Black senator from California, and the reason she achieved that height was because California is extremely liberal. Now, all of a sudden, that she's the VP nom, you want to attack her and say she's not really Black, she's Jamaican, and whatever other half her nationality is. And I think that's so disingenuous. And what that really shows to me is an ignorant argument rooted in white supremacy to try to distract and detract Black people from having this moment of excitement and accomplishment, and to discourage them to vote for her, for those people that may be attracted to her because they see representation. And, it's very true. There are people who are going to vote for her solely because she's Black. And I don't think that it's fair to disenfranchise them for that, because there are people who voted for Trump simply because he was a racist bastard. And that's exactly who they were. So you can't go across the aisle and tell those Black people that they're wrong for wanting to put in the White House, and in that space, representation of what looks like them.
I assent to all of that. And I also assent to your concern with her prosecution record. That's something that you and I have both discussed repetitively. I've also brought that up with ChiChi in a different part of the interview, and she addressed that as well. But lastly, I asked ChiChi, could Kamala win, what she could do, what could Kamala do to win over her skeptical voters? And let's take a look at her response.
When I think about individuals that are like, oh, I don't want to vote because he chose Kamala, my thing is vice presidents don't make or break a campaign. And as quiet as it's kept, right, it really doesn't. People that say things like that, in my humble opinion, weren't going to vote for that person regardless. They weren't. How about this? I'll give it to you in this angle. Destiny's Child, right? Started off 4 members, the original. I still think that The Writing's on the Wall is the best Destiny's Child album, right? We were really there for Beyonce and Kelly, right? LaToya and Latavia, I love it. Listen, I wanted to be Latavia. I thought she had a cute little swoop. I wanted it. My mom wouldn't let me cut my hair like that, right? But we were really, really there for Beyonce and Kelly in 1999. When LaToya and Latavia dropped, it's not like we're like, oh, well, we can't do it because they added Michelle. Are you crazy? It was good before. That means you just did not like them. That's what I'm thinking, and that's what I'm hearing. And to me, it's, you don't have enough skin in the game. Now, I am trying so hard to be measured on this illustrious podcast. But
go ahead, let have.
Some of y'all don't hate Donald Trump and his ilk enough for me, and it's displeasing to me and my homegirls. It's just offensive to me that y'all think that these last 4 years were just a kiki, a play. I think that a lot of work is internal and private. I think that individuals that are skeptical need to do the work, and they need to do the research first.
All right, so Sean, do you assent or dissent to her views on skeptical voters of Kamala Harris?
I assent and I dissent.
Oh, okay.
So let me first start by saying, I feel like some people are skeptical just because they want to be relevant. They're not really skeptical. You have no idea. You're using other people's talking points and things that you haven't researched for yourself. When I talk about her record as the AG of California, that's things that I know. That's things that I researched. That's things that I looked up. That's things that I paid attention to. But then on the flip side of that, I believe her father is like one of the few tenured Black professors at Stanford, and his views on progressiveness far exceeds any Democratic views that we have. So I believe if she taps into that, that's probably a very good thing for the Biden-Harris ticket that, will be wonderful. And, shout out to my cousin Nate, who hipped me to that. I dissent about VPs don't make or break the ticket, because that's not 100% accurate. while in normal circumstances, yes, people don't look at the VP as making or breaking the ticket, they do have a big stake in it, especially when you put VPs up against each other to debate. That's number one. Number two, you don't have to go back too far in history. We can just go back to McCain Palin. We knew that John McCain, God rest his soul, was old as dirt. And it was a very possible chance that we looked at his age and, hey, who's going to take over after him if we elect him? It's Sarah Palin. God bless Sarah Palin, but she's dumb as a box of rocks. So in my opinion, she definitely did break the McCain Palin ticket, but that's not always the norm. So that's why I kind of dissent a little bit on that. As far as what can she do to win over skeptical voters, my thing is, I assent to some of the things that she's saying, but I guess I just look at it differently because one, I think some people are skeptical, just to be skeptical, just to seem relevant. Three, I think that some people are skeptical because they don't have anything else to do. They just want to join the conversation and go against the grain and be a rebel. I also think that, reality is reality. At the end of the day, you have two choices. Am I skeptical of Senator Harris? Just a little bit, but I also live in reality, and I know that that's my only choice. So I don't have the privilege of throwing away a vote because my vote means too much to not only myself, but my ancestors who fought for this right and died for this right. So I'm not throwing away my vote. I'm definitely not going to vote third party or do a write-in because that's throwing away your vote, and basically you might as well have sat home. And Donald Trump will never, ever, ever, ever in life get my vote. Even when I die, I'm still not voting for him. So
oh, you better come on.
So there's nothing else that I can do but vote Biden Harris because anything is better than what we have. And going back to, episode 1 when LJ was on our show, she knocked it out of the park and really brought it home for us. Is Biden Harris the best ticket? It may not be the best ticket, but the fact of the matter is it's the better ticket. So in my opinion, I really don't think Kamala needs to do anything to win over skeptical voters because at the end of the day, like she said, they're going to vote for who they're going to vote for regardless. And either you're on the team or you're not. Okay, so one of the hot topics going on right now, of course, is the return to school for children of all ages and how that's going to look with COVID-19. So here to discuss with us, we have some parents, some educators, and spouses of educators. And I'm happy to welcome Will Smith to the show, who is a parent from St. Louis, Missouri. We have Laurel Weatherford, who is a music therapist from Michigan. We have Delia Pruitte, who is a language arts teacher and also special education teacher from Virginia. And we also have Fonda, who is a parent and the spouse of an educator from the state of Arkansas. Welcome, you guys. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
So, according to an article published by the CDC, these are some of the facts that they were giving us. Children are less likely to suffer severe symptoms. The death rates among school-age children are lower than adults. It said actually under 7% for contraction and less than 0.1% of death in school-age children. They were also arguing that the lack of in-person educational opportunities disproportionately harms low-income and minority children and those with disabilities. They were saying things like in-person learning addresses nutritional needs and facilitates physical activity. Now, the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine published an article that argued opening schools will benefit families beyond providing education, including by supplying childcare, school services, meals, and other family supports. Without in-person instruction, schools risk children falling behind academically and exacerbating educational inequalities. So let's start with the parents first. First of all, are you sending your students back to the physical school building in the fall? Why or why not, Will?
At first, my wife and I, we went back and forth about it. And then the school district itself decided that they were going to be, at the start of the school year, 100% virtual. So 100% remote online. And at first it was going to be, we thought about doing 50-50, like half online and half in school. But I still wasn't comfortable with that. And then when the district came out with allowing the children to do virtual, then I was a lot more at ease with that decision.
Okay, Fonda, what are you doing with your daughter?
Well, from the very beginning, we decided that we were going to do virtual. We never was going to send her into the classroom at all. However, about a week and a half ago, we got a email saying that because she will be in pre-K, that virtual is not even an option. So they told us that we had to either send our pre-K students in person or they couldn't attend at all. So now, I know. So now she doesn't even have the virtual option. So she won't be doing anything.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
wow, that's
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's a lot. Interesting. Staff members, Delia and Laurel, are you guys returning to work in the fall physically? Laurel, let's start with you.
Yep, so we are returning physically in the fall. And I'm a county employee, so we are at the beck and call of the different districts within our county. So some are virtual, some are hybrid, and some are full-time face-to-face. So as a county employee, I will be doing all three.
Delia, what are you doing?
I don't know, because they decided at the last school board meeting that they were going to do 100% virtual, except for their most vulnerable population. So it was just this blanket statement that basically said, you know, English language learners and SPED students may or may not, on a case-by-case basis, need to come in for some instruction. So for me, because I haven't met my students yet, we have to have meetings for every single kid to find out if they need to come in or not. And that's going to take at least 2 weeks. And then I'll know if I'm coming or not. But by faith, I'm going to be at my house. That's the plan. That's what I want to be.
Have you discussed as a family what would happen if either your child or husband or both become sick or exposed?
Unfortunately, we have not discussed that. That is something that I feel like we should. It definitely needs to be talked about. I think for me, I've been kind of just avoiding it in hopes that, man, I hope that doesn't happen to us. I hope we don't get to that point. But it definitely needs to be discussed, but we have not really just put a plan in place or, you know, discuss what would happen if, you know, one of them did become exposed or sick.
Well, as a parent, have you and your wife discussed what will happen if your children come home sick with COVID?
As a parent, like, we have a certain amount or a certain level of like fear because of course it's uncertain. And one of the things is like, I'm not sure if we'll be ready emotionally or even because it takes a toll on you, because my wife, her job has not closed down. Our job closed down where we were working from home, but my wife's job didn't close down. So they were there. And so emotionally, it's very taxing and very draining, even just to think about the possibility of a child or my spouse getting exposed to this illness. And so we're ready, but not emotionally ready, if that makes sense. It's like, you know, what do you do? Like, what will your response? Because you want to be there and you can't be there. Like, you have to allow your child to be in a hospital room, potentially like by themselves.
Right.
Like, you can't go be with them. And
All
that's
right.
like one of the scary parts.
Let me ask this question to our two educators, and then I saw Brandon's pen moving, so I think he has some things that he wants to ask or say. Delia, Laurel, with your school districts, your jobs, whatever, have they discussed with you guys if you get sick, what happens? Do you have to use your own sick time? What happens if a child you think is going to be sick or has risk of exposure? Like, how does this work for you guys in the classroom? Laurel, you want to go first?
Oh, sure. Go ahead, Laura. Go ahead.
Sure. Okay, I'll go first. So I know that if we do become sick with COVID or COVID-like symptoms until we get a test, there's a certain plan that's been in place. Don't quote me, I don't know which one it is, but we do not have to use time within our sick bank. There's an alternative sick bank that we'll be utilizing. The plan, if we get COVID, is pretty comprehensive. I will say, like, we will be quarantining if anybody comes into contact at our school. The state of Michigan released a roadmap, and in that roadmap, there were required, strongly recommended, and recommended practices, and our district has adopted all of those practices. So if I get exposed at work, as long as I don't have symptoms and I'm too ill, I can still work virtually from home if that happens. However, the problem is if I do get too sick, or I think we haven't really considered what happens if we're closing down buildings for days at a time. I mean, we've seen it in some states where they've opened, they've closed, they've opened, they've closed. And I think that back and forth will be really difficult.
Okay, Delia, what about your school district?
Bruh, they don't have no plan, okay? Because this is what happened. As soon as they said we're gonna go 100% virtual, all the gen ed teachers and parents, their plan is set. But what they did was kind of offload that burden of that extra comprehensive planning to the SPED teams and the L teams. That way they didn't really have to touch it legally. So they had this meeting 3 weeks ago, 6 weeks out from school starting. And so there's just been nonstop meetings because there's just not enough time to answer all those comprehensive questions. Virginia, where I am in Virginia, our cases are high. They're not going down. So there's not enough contingency plans for them to even really open at all. But they don't have to think about it, and they don't have to put these plans out because they said we're 100% virtual, even though they're really not. So we keep asking. The last 3 meetings I've been on, they've asked us, all right, so teachers, what questions do you have? I'm like, what y'all gonna do with this leave though if I get sick? We're still seeking guidance on that. They don't have answers because they were able to offload that burden and cover their butts legally. So there's really, I don't know.
So if you get sick, you have no idea what's gonna happen.
No idea. I have no idea. I have no idea if I get sick, how that affects me as far as my leave. I don't even know what's gonna happen if I say, yo, I don't want to come in at all. I don't know if they can fire me for that. I don't know if the child comes in sick and and they expose me, do I quarantine for 14 days? Does that come out of my leave? There's no answers to those questions right now. Mm-hmm. There's 2 things happening here that really, really grind my gears. They really burn my biscuits, right? One, in a typical situation, the federal government would kind of set the standard of expectations. And that way the local government agencies can kind of pull from that and customize it to their community's needs. That is not happening. So you have all these counties, districts, cities freestyling, like straight up freestyling, because there's no standard set of expectations. That is a big problem. Like legit, where I am in Virginia, the counties kind of are stacked by affluence. Like you got the real rich county and then a little bit less rich. And so I'm somewhere around the 3rd tier. So what we've been doing, we've been waiting for the real rich county to see what they're gonna do. Oh, that might not work for us. And then the second rich county, what they gonna do? Are we gonna try that? So that lack of consistency and standard expectations is a big problem. Number 2, and I'm gonna be quiet, I have a big issue with the discussion around equity and all these needs that schools are supposed to meet, and that's why they gotta open. Well, schools gotta open because parents gotta go to work. That should not be the argument. Schools gotta open because kids gotta eat. Why schools gotta open because kids need health care? When did the school become this bastion of meeting all these community needs? Yes. And that's why we have to open, even though it's not safe. I'm sorry, if it's not safe for a rich child, it's not safe for a child in poverty. It's not physically safe. And if you cannot guarantee physical safety for children, it's just not safe. It's just not safe. I know they were saying in my school district, well, we're going to provide PPE for all the teachers. So I'm supposed to teach all day long with a mask on and try to keep 6th graders kids is nasty. I love them and I miss them, but kids is nasty. I'm supposed to keep them with masks on, keep them social distancing, keep them learning, make sure they're fed, water. When did the schools, at what point our schools asked to take on too much with no money. Where the money at? I'm gonna be quiet.
Point. So now I want to ask you all, since you are all teachers and parents, and as well as other things that you do, how do you guys feel about the potential vaccine? Do you feel that it's something that you're immediately going to get, postpone, or absolutely not have it at all? And since we're in order here, I'll start with Will, and then we'll move forward in order.
I'm, I guess, hopeful / cynical. And I'll say that only because the administration has done such a horrible job with handling this pandemic. From the outset, the orange guy in office downplayed everything. He went from, I closed down the travel to China and the trade with China, like as if that was going to stop the disease. And I know the question is about the vaccine. So I'm cynical about the vaccine because it has not been tested. I believe it's only been tested on lab rats. It has not been tested on humans yet. And I know that Bill Gates and some other people are getting together trying to run tests in Africa. My thing is, and this, I'm going to preface this statement. When there's an adage that goes, when America gets the cold, the African-American community gets the flu. So why are we then allowing Bill Gates, who is a billionaire and knows nothing about health and safety, healthcare, or anything, to push a vaccine and test Africans, which to me is another makeshift Tuskegee experiment. And so we're going
assent.
Huh?
I assent.
Yeah. And so I don't agree with it. And my thing is, if you're going to use humans, then use those who are of the non-African descent. And I know that they said that African Americans are more disproportionately affected by this disease, but let's not use Africans or African Americans as the guinea pig. And that may sound harsh, but that's a very real statement, because you're going to use poor and marginalized countries to push this vaccine, to push human trials, and they're poor. So they're going to sign up for it because I'm sure that there's a monetary stipend that comes along with it. So therefore, they're going to sign up because they need money, they need finances. So again, they line up for this Tuskegee experiment. Sure, they're not being shot up with syphilis, but they're being shot up with God knows what. And so there has to be a different way. There has to be a better way. And someone has to be the voice of reason. So right now, the vaccine, I am hopeful, but still cynical. So I'm not sure yet. I don't know.
Good. Laurel?
I feel really similarly to Will. I'm not going to be the first one in line for that vaccine. But I mean, if it will allow us to have some of our freedoms back, definitely after I see some facts and results, I mean, that could take years to get the way that it's supposed to be. So I don't expect it to be perfect in a year. I expect it to have tweaks, but I also want to make certain that it doesn't have long-term negative effects as well. I don't know enough.
All right. Delia?
If they don't have enough information on the virus, how they gonna get enough information for the vaccine? Like, y'all don't even know the long-term effects of the virus. Why you shooting people with the vaccine? I'm good.
I assent 1,000% as somebody in the medical community. I assent 1,000,000,000%.
I assent.
And Miss Fonda?
I pretty much agree with everything everyone else said, but I would not be getting the vaccine. I mean, even if it's proven later on down the line that it actually is, it has potential to do good and, it is helping, I still won't get it. I'm not a vaccine type of person. Even with other vaccines, the flu, for instance, or, I don't get my child vaccinated. I just don't. I'm not a fan of vaccines, and this is definitely one that I wouldn't get.
Brandon, are you going to get the vaccine?
Absolutely not. And
Maybe
I'm
when
a
rich
physician
people.
assistant.
When
right.
rich people get it. When
and
y'all,
if I do get it, it will.
And that's the thing. Yes. Let the rich people line up to get the vaccines, and let us.
Well, they're
watch
most likely
them.
to be the first one served anyway. All right. Well, that has been this week's episode of Assent, Dissent. Make sure if you like our content that you like, follow, and subscribe. We are at Assent_Dissent on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. You can listen to us on audio via Apple Podcasts and Spotify, also on iTunes, and we also have the video components on our Facebook page and YouTube page. Tonight's episode was full of viewpoints, opinions, and information that we could not fit it into our 30-minute episode, so we will be releasing both sets of interviews today as full separate episodes for bonus content for our viewers and listeners. So with that, we will see you all next week for the next episode of Assent, Dissent.